What up, everybody? It's showtime. It's a little bit afternoon. Apologies for the slight delay, but we are now officially broadcasting on multiple platforms at the same time. So I figured out how to do it somewhat, and I'm excited about that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We are live on a bunch of places at the same time right now. Phantom, Facebook, and the likes. So on Phantom, on Facebook, on Twitch, and on YouTube. So appreciate everybody for watching this, wherever you're watching this. Carlos Martinez says, what up? You can be watching this on Facebook, on the Phantom page at facebook.com/watchphantom, or you're watching it on the Joe Boo Sports Report, Big Game James, Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation. So I want to thank all of our partners there for broadcasting live with us right here on Showtime, every day at noon, right here on Phantom Facebook's Live Sports Network. All right, let's not waste any more time. I start off every show. Henry Munoz in the house. Joe Deasy, what up, what up, what up, what up, Gabe Gonzalez. What up, everybody? All right, let's start off today with three things I think. And the first thing that I think is, well, this happened last night. Look at this ridiculous move that Steph Curry put on James Harden. My goodness. He does the patented James Harden fall away. The final score, by the way, of Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals was 1,444,316 to 7. Golden State just absolutely mopped the floor with Houston. It was a couple of things that went wrong for Houston. First and foremost, James Harden and Chris Paul played horribly, and they got caught in the crossfire of the Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, whirling dervish of perfection when it comes to basketball. Yeah, Dad, I was a little bit late today. Appreciate that, though. Let's see, what's everybody else commenting? Joe Deasy, thank you for adding somebody. Gabe Hernandez, the Rockets are clearly outmatched. Houston doesn't play both sides of the floor. Yeah, I mean, look, again, the thing is, anybody who talked themselves into the Rockets winning the series after Game 2 forgot the fact that Golden State was going to win the series. And we always figured it would be a long series. I still believe it will be a long series. But Golden State's going to win this series. They're the best team in the NBA. I've said this from the start. Houston's the only team that can match up. Houston's the only team that can make a series out of this. But, I mean, Houston's better than Cleveland, better than any other team that can even come close to Golden State. But that doesn't mean they've got a shot to win the series. Now, granted, I still think it's going to be a long series. We're going to see Houston play considerably better in Game 4. I think this thing goes back to Houston with Golden State up 3-1, but I still think this series goes at least 6 or 7 games, and the Golden State Warriors are going to win this. But, I mean, the Rockets were they just ran into a buzzsaw last night, and it was basically unwatchable. It was basically unwatchable, Game 3. And, I think what's amazing is we've seen not a lot of very close games in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. It's been a bunch of blowouts. And it's funny because I just saw this, and I want to pull it up. But, I mean, you have, at this point, let me see if I can find it. You have at this point, so I just saw this graphic, and this is telling. This is a very telling graphic. If you want to know why the NFL is the golden goose of modern sports, look no further than the top 50 U.S. broadcasts year to date, 2018. So the top viewed U.S. broadcast in 2018 so far was the Super Bowl with 103.4 million viewers. This is just top 50 United States broadcasts on television. So the Super Bowl had more than twice as many eyeballs as the State of the Union address, which was 45.6 million viewers. Number 3 was the AFC Championship game with 44.1. The NFC Championship game at 42.3. The NFC Divisional Playoffs between New Orleans and Minnesota took a 35.6 million. The AFC Divisional Playoffs between Jacksonville and Pittsburgh at 31.4. The NFC Wildcard Playoffs had Carolina and New Orleans 31.1. That was 7th. The Royal Wedding, which people can't stop talking about how great the Royal Wedding was, that was 8th. In top 50 United States broadcasts in 2018 so far, 29.2. The College Football Championship, Alabama versus Georgia, was 9th at 28.4. 10th was opening ceremony of the 2018 Olympics, 28.3. And then 11 was the divisional playoffs between Atlanta and Philadelphia at 27. $5.1 million. I mean, they have the AFC divisional playoffs, the AFC wild cards, Winter Olympics Night 5, Winter Olympics Night 2, Night 3, the Academy Awards. This Is Us makes list. This is top 20. My point of bringing this up is the NBA playoffs doesn't even scratch this, doesn't even get close. You have non-NFL events, the State of the Union address, the Royal Wedding, the College Football Championship, the opening ceremony of the Olympics, 3 nights of the Olympics, the Academy Awards, the Rose Bowl, This Is Us. All crack the top 20. But everything else, so basically you have 11 of the top 20 are NFL games, and more specifically NFL playoff games. And then the only other thing that then you have TV shows and college football events and the Olympics. So the NBA playoffs, though the NBA is very popular and is becoming more and more popular, they still aren't even close when it comes to just mainstream when you look at the ratings across the country. Not even cracking the top 20. And this year, what we've seen is a bunch of blowouts, the Western Conference Finals, the Eastern Conference Finals. So long story short, we're not going to see good ratings at all through the rest of the Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals, which means that not a lot of people really care about the NBA playoffs. And I mean, when I'm talking about nationally, obviously people care in Houston, people care in Oakland, people care in Cleveland, people care in the other markets. But it's just very interesting just how important the NFL is relative to the NBA, and it's not even close. Which was the second thing that I think. The NFL remains the golden goose of professional sports. 100% the NFL remains the golden goose of professional sports. And let me see if I can bring this up just to show you this graph I just cited. I'm going to try to bring this up right now. Let's see here. Let me go into my Google Docs. This is, by the way, it's showtime. I'm Ari Temkin. We're live on Facebook, on Twitch, and on YouTube, so go check us out over there. And also make sure to watch us. We're going to get to the Cowboys here in a moment. Some big Cowboy stories coming up. But you can watch us on Big Game James page, Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, Joe Boo Sports Report. All those pages, partners of ours here at Phantom, so make sure to check us out. And tell me where you're watching from. Bobby Stotzenberger in the house. West Coast Tyson, West Coast Cowboys going on. What up? Carlos Martinez says James Harden defense is like putting electrical tape on a tire-up shoe. It's just not dependable. Look, the problem all year with the Rockets has been their quote-unquote defense, although they've been a better defensive team. Like, that's the thing is, and I want to continue to bring this up. The Houston Rockets are the best version. This is the best version of the Houston Rockets that we've seen. But that still doesn't mean that they're good enough to beat Golden State, and that's the ultimate point here is, yes, this is the best version that we've ever seen of this iteration of the Houston Rockets. But that still doesn't mean that they're good enough to compete with the Golden State Warriors. So here we go. So this is what I'm talking about here. Here's the top 20 viewed events in the United States in 2018 so far. There you can see Super Bowl, NFC Championship, AFC Championship, divisional round, wild card round. It's all there. I mean, it's just incredible just how powerful the NFL is. So that's, again, there you go. There's the graph to show you just how ridiculous the NFL's popularity is relative to other sports. All right. The third thing I think, and this is really about the landscape of the NBA when it comes to trades. So over the weekend, it was reported that Karl Anthony Towns, the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking to potentially trade him. This is really bad news for the Spurs because if the Spurs are looking to trade Kawhi Leonard, obviously this is going to change the trade market for Kawhi Leonard. And you may not actually believe that Karl Anthony Towns is on the market, but look, if you're Boston, just for instance, if you're Boston and you probably don't want to trade Jason Tatum, but you want to trade Jaylen Brown potentially. Would you rather trade him for Karl Anthony Towns or Kawhi Leonard? Just the fact that there's competition. And look, Kawhi Leonard's a better player today, but I mean, a lot of teams look more at upside. And again, Kawhi has a lot of upside. I'm not downplaying that. Kawhi Leonard has both the upside and is a better player today, but it's going to change the market and availability for Kawhi Leonard because now there's more potential out there with Karl Anthony Towns. Phoenix said they'd be looking to trade the number 1 pick. Does that mean they'd be more likely to trade it for Karl Anthony Towns to Minnesota than it would be to trade him for Kawhi Leonard? The fact that Minnesota is potentially making Karl Anthony Towns available on the trade block means that it's going to change and potentially suppress the market for Kawhi Leonard. It's not great news. All right, I believe this is Tyson, West Coast Cowboy, commenting on Phantom. Okay, question, LBJ on Houston. Do they beat Golden State? Yeah, I think so. And Tyson, if you haven't been watching into my streams, I've been saying that I think LeBron's going to end up going to Houston, because if LeBron looks at the NBA and the only team that he can go to and win now with and potentially win a championship with, that's Houston. Like, what other team? I know Sixers fans will talk themselves into the Sixers, but Houston's the best win now situation. And I'm not willing to say, yes, they beat Golden State, but LeBron's best chance to beat Golden State would be by going to Houston. And I've been saying that for a long time, and I think that is where LeBron goes after the season. I think LeBron looks at the NBA, says, yeah, I can go to Philly, and they've got a lot of really good young players, but I've got to grow with them, and he's not in a position where he wants to grow at this point. He needs a team that's going to win now, and the best win now, win-ready team would be Houston. Joe Deasy says, if you trade Cat for Brown and your GM, you get fired. No, true. What I was saying is Brown and probably Memphis's pick or the Kings pick. Because remember, Boston still has the Sacramento pick and Memphis's pick, which is top 8 protected next year. So the Kings pick is unprotected, so they get the Kings pick next year, Boston, no matter what, which I'm sure they're going to hold on to. But if you get the 8th overall pick or the 9th overall pick, it's top 8 protected in Memphis. It'd be interesting to see if that would be enough for Minnesota to get Jaylen Brown, and then a top 8 protected pick. And Joe Deasy says it would make sense. It makes sense for him to go to Houston because that's where he can win now. Like if you go, where's the situation LeBron could go to and have his best chance to win a championship? To me, that's Houston. Andy Kaya says, is Towns a young Horford? No, I think Towns is better, has more upside, but Horford's supremely underrated, I believe. Yeah, I mean, if you want to look, again, we can just go look, and there's no WWE events listed on that top 20, and that was the list I pulled from. The only non-NFL events on the top 20 list, this is the top 20 highest-rated sporting events of 2018 so far, top-rated television events of 2018 so far. This Is Us is there. You see the Academy Awards are there. The Royal Wedding is in the top 10. Then you have the College Football National Championship and the Rose Bowl, they're there. Then you have the Olympics. You have, 3 Winter Olympics nights plus the opening ceremonies. But you have 11 NFL playoff games on there. 11 of the top 20 are NFL playoff games, and the majority of them are live sports. So just kind of goes to show you. Liz Barcoma checking in. How are you, Liz? Greg Zuniga watching. Zach Rosenberg as well. Yeah, and Tyson says LeBron needs a true point guard. Houston has 2. Yeah, no, totally agree with you. I'm Ari Temkin. We're live on Phantom, Facebook's Live Sports Network. Also broadcasting live on Twitch. Check us out there. And on YouTube at youtube.com/watch Phantom. So check us out in all those places. And make sure if you're watching this to tag someone that you think might enjoy what we're doing here and help them join the show as well. Let's check in with some of the other pages we're broadcasting this on Facebook. We're broadcasting live on the Law Nation page. Also, again, broadcasting on Silver and Blue Nation, also on Big Game James. So the thing that sucks is I can look at the comments on Phantom's page, but I can't. I have to basically scroll between the pages to find out the comments going on all these different pages. So bear with me for a second as I scroll through the other pages and check out who else is commenting with us. I'm live every day at noon right here on Phantom, Facebook Sports Network. Make sure to like the page, facebook.com/watch Phantom. All right, the big story today, that's the 3 things I think. The big story today is about the Cowboys. And we start off with T-Will, Terrence Williams, who, unless you were under a rock, was arrested over the weekend for public intoxication. That was the only thing he was arrested for. There's his mugshot. Does not look great. But again, who takes a good mugshot? My favorite reaction to this mugshot that we're seeing right now is he looks drunk. He looks unhappy. He doesn't look drunk. His eyes aren't red. His eyes are a bit closed. He looks tired and unhappy. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Who else wouldn't be tired and unhappy if they were arrested at 5 o'clock in the morning? So, and again, if we're looking at what's admissible in court, you can't be like, well, he was drunk. Did you see his mugshot? His mugshot doesn't make him look drunk. His mugshot makes him look tired and unhappy. And I'll just double down on the unhappy part. He looks very, very unhappy. You can also see, here's T-Will with his sponsored post about Lyft. Not a good look for T-Will. There's the Frisco Police Department report. So the report is that he crashed into that there was a Lamborghini that crashed into a light pole. And it was a blue Lamborghini. It belonged to Terrence Williams. The driver of the vehicle fled the scene. He was later spotted, the driver of the vehicle, Terrence Williams, or rather the owner of the vehicle. He was later spotted by his house riding a motorized scooter, motorized bike. So he was arrested for public intoxication because the arresting officer found him on his motorized bike, and even though he didn't fail a field sobriety test or even take a field sobriety test, he was still arrested for public intoxication nonetheless. There's a lot to sift through here when it comes to the legalese of this entire story, to be honest with you. And so basically, T-Will's side of the story is, I wasn't drunk, I never asked to take a field sobriety test, also I didn't crash into a pole. Okay. The thing is, like, if you're T-Will, there is, like, all you had to do was Google NFL player crashes Lamborghini. Like, that's literally all he had to do. Because if he did that, if he Googled NFL player crashed Lamborghini, he would have found this story from August of 2007 with Lance Briggs, who was basically in the exact same situation. And you can read the story. Chicago Bears linebacker Lance Briggs says he panicked after crashing his brand new Lamborghini along a highway early Monday morning and initially reported his car stolen after abandoning the mangled vehicle. So, very, very similar story. Lance Briggs, NFL player, has a Lamborghini. He crashed it on the highway. Here's his quote. When it happened, the first thing I did, obviously, was panic. I didn't want there to be a big scene there. And so I left the scene. When I left, I called the tow truck. I also was startled, and I called to report that my car was stolen. Within probably 10 minutes, I called back and accepted responsibility for what I did because it was ridiculous in the first place. Illinois State Police said they have no record of Briggs reporting a stolen vehicle. They did say that Briggs placed a 911 call around 4 a.m. Monday after initially saying he did not call police until sometime between 8 a.m. and 9. Master Sergeant Luis Gutierrez said Briggs, quote, gave no indication of his car being stolen during either call. Illinois police found the abandoned vehicle, which had hit a light pole and concrete bridge support along the Edens Expressway on the city's north side around 3:15 in the morning. I mean, Terrence, what were you doing? Literally just Google NFL player Lamborghini and you would have gotten what, like, all you had to do is go home and be like, all right, let's see if anybody else has been in the situation. And then Google NFL player Lamborghini. You would have found this story and then you would have known exactly what you had to do. Briggs was charged with leaving the scene of an accident, a misdemeanor, and was given a traffic citation for failure to give immediate notice of an accident and improper lane usage. When he met with police on Monday afternoon, he was released after posting a $100 bond and is scheduled to appear on October 4th in Cook County. So here's what Lance Briggs did. This is what Terrence Williams should have done. Lance Briggs and Terrence Williams are driving home, presumably drunk, with their Lamborghinis, and they crash into a light pole. Or, in Terrence Williams' case, you crash into something, but your car is no longer drivable. You call a friend. Hey, I got into an accident. Can you come and grab me? Can you come and pick me up? If the cops find this, I'm going to get arrested for drunken driving. So the friend picks you up. You go home, you call the police, you file a report, you get arrested for fleeing the scene of an accident. At this point, though, and Lance Briggs did a very, very good thing insofar as he waited until 8 or 9 in the morning when he's arrested for fleeing the scene of an accident, he's going to still be able to pass a field sobriety test. Lance Briggs gave you the blueprint of what you had to do, Terrence Williams, and you didn't do that. Instead, you fled the scene and then for some reason decided to get on your motorbike. Why? Were you trying to go back to the scene to see what was going on? I'm not really sure, but just all you had to do is follow the blueprint that Lance Briggs gave you. That's literally all you had to do. Scott D'Amico says, how's he driving a Lamborghini with a broken foot? That's a great point, Scott. Yes, how is Terrence Williams driving a Lamborghini with a broken foot? Remember, he broke his foot in April, had to have surgery for it. That's a great point. Was it his left foot or his right foot? Because you obviously drive with one foot, so maybe that was the issue. The most amazing thing to me about this entire story is literally all he had to do. All he had to do was Google NFL player crash Lamborghini. He would have stumbled upon this story, and this story would have given him the blueprint of all he had to do. All he had to do was do what Lance Briggs did. WWLBD. What would Lance Briggs do? WWLBD. What would Lance Briggs do? Lance Briggs crashed his Lamborghini into a light pole on the highway early in the morning. He fled the scene, went back home. Called the police department early in the morning, and then was arrested for fleeing the scene of an accident. In this case, though, because Terrence Williams was continually out, and though he didn't even take a field sobriety test, he at least has some argument to be made about that he wasn't drunk because they have no documentation, at least from what we've heard, that he was drunk. But I mean, his number one issue was he went home and then decided to grab his motorbike. What is it? A motorized bicycle? It was not a motorcycle, correct? It was just a motorized bicycle. Is that what we're led to believe? But I digress. Literally all he had to do was follow the Lance Briggs blueprint, and he didn't. And so here we are. Phantom commenting, I'm guessing that's Tyson West Coast Cowboy commenting, why didn't he just call a tow truck? Because, you don't want to be waiting around your car if police arrive. Like, that's the thing is, like, what Lance Briggs did, to be honest with you, I'm not advocating for breaking the law in this capacity. Let me just set that straight, okay? I am not in any capacity advocating for breaking the law like Lance Briggs did. But if you look at what Lance Briggs did, and again, let me just kind of go back to this story so you can all see it and then understand. Here we go. So in August of 2007, at the time, Chicago Bears linebacker Lance Briggs crashed his Lamborghini on a highway. He crashed into a pole. Wow, it's like a blueprint is right there for you. At about 3:15 in the morning, he said he initially called police and then said his car was stolen, but then recanted that and said he took responsibility for it. Whatever the case was, the police have absolutely no report of any stolen vehicle. He said that the police got a call until between 8 and 9 a.m., which makes sense. If you're Lance Briggs, you fled the scene of your accident, you went home, you waited until 8 o'clock in the morning, you woke up, you called police, said, I crashed my car, here it is, and then you get arrested for fleeing the scene. And that's why, the reason why this is a good thing if you're an NFL player is because the what you're arrested for doesn't really matter unless it's a alcohol-related arrest, because then, especially in the current landscape of the NFL, you're subject to suspension. Alcohol-related arrests make you subject to the to being suspended potentially. So, but an arrest for fleeing the scene of an accident doesn't put you subject to an automatic suspension under the guidelines of the NFL. Now, the NFL could still suspend you, but that's a better charge than an alcohol-related charge, to say the least. Tyson says, go home, call the tow truck from home, have your lady or friend go get the car. Or, again, just do what Lance Briggs did. Literally, all you have to do. Just do what Lance Briggs did. You crash your car, you leave it on the side of the road, you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you call police, say, I'd like to report an accident. The police say, why'd you take so long to report it? You'd be like, I don't know. But at least at that point, you can pass a field sobriety test. The only crime you're going to be arrested for is fleeing the scene of an accident, and that was all that happened with Lance Briggs. He didn't get suspended. He didn't miss any time. He just, again, had the crime of fleeing the scene of an accident. But in this case, Terrence Williams, was now arrested for public intoxication. Now he's subject, because there's alcohol involved. If he does plead out to this and get this and end up with this charge, he will potentially be subject to automatic suspension based on the NFL's personal conduct policy. So Greg Zuniga says, why don't these dudes Uber knowing that they're going to be partying at the club and risking their careers or lives? Better question, if you're on first of all, the Cowboys have their own, you don't even need Uber or Lyft. That's what's amazing here. You don't even need Uber or Lyft if you're a Cowboys player or NFL player, because you have, within the NFL's bylaws, or rather within the NFL's PA, the Players Association, they provide drivers for everybody in the NFLPA. Also, the Cowboys provide drivers for everybody. So Terrence Williams could have called up a driver through the NFLPA or the Cowboys, but he didn't. Jim Australian, what's up, buddy? How are you? Long time no see. And then, of course, you can see this tweet from Terrence Williams. This way. Which way is it? It's the other way. There you go. Oh, there it is, from Terrence Williams. Yeah, call the number, but we see this all the time with athletes, whatever the reason, right? Like they're drunk, they're leaving the club, they think they're fine, they're obviously not, but they think they're fine when they're in the state of being drunk. They think they're okay, so they go and try and drive. Like if you're wondering why, it's because a lot of drunk people, when they drive a lot while they're drunk, they think they're okay driving drunk. That's the reality of it. If you're somebody that drinks a lot and you've driven when you're drunk, the more you drink and drive, the more okay you think you are when the time comes. And sometimes being arrested for drunken driving is the best thing that happens to you because it stops you from doing that. And that's everybody always asks that question, whether you're an NFL player or you're a human being. Anytime anybody gets arrested for a DUI, it's like, why would you do that? It's going to cost you significantly more than a $30 or $40 or $50 Uber or Lyft would. And it's never been easier to get a cab or an Uber or Lyft. You literally just take out your phone. But again, people believe they are, it's superior human complex. People believe that, I can drive, I'm fine, especially when you're drunk. Especially when you're drunk, you think you're fine, especially if you've driven drunk multiple times before. So the question now is, what does this mean for Terrence Williams? I know some people are like, well, you got to cut him. No, you're not going to cut him. You're not going to cut Terrence Williams because, first of all, it makes no sense. It makes no sense from a money standpoint. It makes no sense to cut Terrence Williams because if you cut him, you're at $7 million in dead money. So it costs you right now $4 million against the cap to keep Terrence Williams. If you cut him, it would cost you $7 million in dead money. So you're not cutting Terrence Williams. That makes absolutely no sense. The time you'd cut Terrence Williams would be a year from now. If he has another Terrence Williams type year, you cut Terrence Williams a year from now when it's $2 million dead money against the cap as opposed to his $4 million cap hit. It's just basic math here. Would you rather him cost $3 million more in dead money, or would you rather just take the $4 million cap hit and not the additional $3 million cap hit that the $7 million would give you and at least cut him after this year? Because Terrence Williams has been a horrible disappointment for the Cowboys. He was, a third-round pick? Was he a second or a third-round pick out of Baylor? I want to say off the top of my head, without looking this up, that he was a third-round pick in the Gavin Escobar year. Oh, what a bad draft for the Cowboys. I think off the top of my head that Gavin Escobar was a second-round pick and Terrence Williams was a third-round pick in that same year. And it might have been the Mo Claiborne year, if I'm being honest. Oof. Let's just look it up. Third? Was he a third, Joe? Was he a third? Was he in that Claiborne, Gavin Escobar, Terrence Williams draft? Was that draft? Oh, that's a horrible draft. Was that same draft? Yeah, he was a third. Joe Deasy and Tyson both tell me he was a third. That's right. And I'm trying to remember. He was in that same Gavin Escobar draft, was he not? Which was also, I believe, Joe Deasy says had a great year his last year at Baylor without RG3. He did. I mean, he was good at Baylor. With the Cowboys, though, he's been just average. When you look at, everybody always says when you bring up T. Will, well, he does so much more, right? He's a good blocker on the edge. I guess he's smart, although he ran out of bounds the first game of the season last year, which seemingly cost the Cowboys, or didn't, but almost did, and it was just a stupid move. His best year with the Cowboys, 2014 and 2015. 2014, he had 8 touchdowns, 621 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he had a big year touchdown-wise in 2014. And then in 2015, 840 yards and 3 touchdowns. Last year, he had 53 receptions for 568 yards and 0 touchdowns. Look, the best thing you can say about T. Will is availability. T. Will has never missed a game in 5 years in the NFL. So that's good. That's great. That's the one really positive thing that you can say about T. Will. In 5 years in the NFL, he's never missed a game. That's good. That's important. Because availability is an important component for being in the NFL. But that's about it. And then you look at, all right, so who's the depth chart at wide receiver for the Cowboys? You've got Cole Beasley, you've got Tavon Austin, Allen Hurns, Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson, 6th-round pick, Deontay Thompson, Noah Brown, and then Lance Lenore and a few others, potentially making the roster. So Joe Deasy says, reminds me of another wide receiver, Dez. Great numbers with Tony, decline with Dak. Yeah, and look, his numbers decline with Dak, but I would never ever put T. Will's numbers, even with Tony, in the great category. I mean, again, his best year, 621 yards and 8 touchdowns in 14 with Tony. So a lot of touchdowns, but 621 yards. And then 840 yards in 15, his most yards in a season. So he's never been a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, granted, he's always been with Dez, so he's always been a number 2, so you never looked for him to be a 1,000-yard receiver. But, 840 and 3 touchdowns. So, it's not, even with Tony, it's not like he put up just eye-popping great numbers. So his numbers, and to Joe Deasy's point, his numbers have, at points, declined, when Dak's been there. But that's why, I guess... But that's why I guess, look, they wanted to overhaul their wide receiving core. And that's potentially the one reason you may look at this and think, well, maybe they'll cut T. Will. But I think money-wise, it just doesn't make any sense. And, you've got, I think the idea for the receiving core this year was, look, we don't want anybody to be at 1,000 yards, but we want a bunch of guys to be at 500, 600, 700, 800. And T. Will fits right into that category. And T. Will also... When you look at different levels of the field, Cole Beasley and whatever they end up with at the tight end position, they kind of patrol underneath. You have Terrence Williams is the sort of intermediate part of the field, and Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson and potentially Deontay Thompson. These are your home run hitters. So and maybe we'll see Alan Hearns as well in that intermediate area. So maybe they fulfilled that and they don't really need T. Will. Look, I don't know. I just think it makes fiscal sense for you to keep T. Will, and that's the reason why you keep T. Will. It would cost them $7 million against the cap to cut him, whereas if they kept him, it only counts $4 million against the salary cap this year. So again, you're better off just keeping him this year. You're better off just keeping him this year and not eating the dead money, which, again, would cost you more money. I'm Ari Temkin. We're live on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Facebook.com/WatchFantasy. Make sure to check us out wherever you're watching us. Post your comments wherever you're watching us. I will try to get to as many comments along as many of these platforms as I possibly can. I'm just trying to figure out... all right, so we got the T. Will. Again, it's not like T. Will's been great. Let's see. Tyson says T. Will plays good when he's in the doghouse. Let's see how he comes back, or if he does. Again, I think he's going to come back just because it makes no sense for you to cut him. This is just, it's kind of is consistent with the bad decision making we've seen from T. Will throughout his career. All right, let's see. On the Silver and Blue Nation page, Dan Barton says another Jerry Thug hire a general manager. Yes, but that's just not going to happen. So the other part of the Cowboys I wanted to get to was this video. So again, here's Jalen Smith, a video that has Cowboys fans foaming at the mouth. Here's Jalen Smith working out without a brace. He looks good. Look, I don't want to poo-poo this video. He looks really good, right? And he's doing it without a brace, and it's got Cowboys fans excited, and it should. But we fell into this trap last year. I've talked about this. Let's temper our expectations for Jalen Smith, who, again, is coming back from a horribly devastating injury. Just temper expectations. He says he doesn't have drop foot anymore. What does that mean? It means he's got full nerve regeneration in his ankle. I don't believe that's true. We'll see if when he gets back in the field for organized team activities, when he gets in the field for training camp, if that's true. If he is truly if he has full regeneration in his ankle. I believe he still has issues with that ankle. Again, just like last year when we saw these videos with Jalen Smith, let's just temper our expectations. And again, I want to go back to what I said last week about Jalen. He is at a disadvantage when they're asking him to go sideline to sideline. That was what they asked him to do at times last year when Sean Lee was out of the lineup, right? They need him to be attacking straight line downhill. He is going to be, yeah, agreed, Joe, but I don't know why I said it, but I said it. Agreed it was a bad comment. They called Terrence Williams a thug, but whatever. Terrence Williams is not a thug. Like many people, he's been arrested before. Like many people, he gets arrested. And the crime he committed, you can call everybody that gets arrested a thug. I get it if you do. I'm just not in that camp, but the one commenter did, and I read the comment. So there we go. Where was I? Yeah, so, okay, with Jalen. Jalen needs to be attacking straight line downhill, right? That's when Jalen's at his best. Going sideline to sideline is not good for somebody that has nerve damage and can't feel his ankle. So that's why I like the drafting of Leighton Vander Esch, because now with the absence of Sean Lee, you've got a guy that can go sideline to sideline, and that's where Leighton Vander Esch is at his best. He is not a Roquan Smith, Jalen Smith, attack the line of scrimmage, blitz the quarterback kind of linebacker, right? Leighton Vander Esch is more of a sideline to sideline kind of guy, which is why I like the pick, because if you lose Sean Lee, you've got a guy that can go sideline to sideline in Leighton Vander Esch and replace Sean Lee. And even if you don't, now you've got two guys potentially out there that can do that. That can, that can go sideline to sideline, which again means Jalen Smith has to do less sideline to sideline running, which is really difficult to do if you've got severe nerve damage in your ankle. So, that's why I like Jalen Smith to have his best year yet. Well, one, because, this is now year 3 in his rehab. So he's going to be better than he's been just based on time and time alone, allowing him to get more strength and more comfortable with that ankle. But again, the big test is going to be when the real bullets are flying, so to speak, and he's out there at training camp. How will he run, and will he be running with that brace? He's not wearing the brace now, as you can see in the video that he posted. But just like last year, remember last year at this time too, same kind of thing. A lot of videos out there with him not wearing that brace, and we saw this year, which was people had supremely high expectations for him. And, obviously those expectations were not met because people figured he'd step in there and be what he was at Notre Dame. It's going to take some time for him to do that. First and foremost, he probably has to get full nerve regeneration, which who knows if that will ever happen. But at least, let's see the comfortability that he has running when, he's going against real competition, in training camp, in off-season workouts, and on and on and on. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us live on Phantom, live every single day at 12 Central, 1 o'clock Eastern. Coming up next, though, it's the TJ Carpenter Experience, so make sure to check that out, the brand new TJ Carpenter Show, coming up live on Phantom at facebook.com/watch Phantom. Make sure to check that out next, right here on Phantom, Facebook's live sports network.